This is the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James, and we're joined today by the Honorable Frank Lucas. He's the representative of the 3rd Congressional District of Oklahoma, serves on the Financial Services Committee, also Science, Space, and Technology, and a former chairman of the House Ag Committee. It's good to see you.
It's good to be with you.
And let's start with how things are shaping up back at home in the district. What do you see?
Well, first off, as always, in an ag district, what's the weather doing? And my district is literally the northwest half of the great state of Oklahoma and the panhandle of Oklahoma. So if you're from about the halfway mark in my district going east, we've had a little rain, the wheat's going in the ground, late summer pasture, the cattle are fat, folks are a little bit more enthusiastic about life. If you're in the western half of the district, some have enough wheat, enough moisture to farm, some don't yet. I don't have enough moisture to put my wheat in the ground yet in Roger Mills County. So we're all a little sensitive. Now that's the weather. The price conditions, still a struggle out there. With COVID-19's impact on the food chain in this country, the dramatic drop in the summer of the price of all forms of livestock, it's come back some, but it's not what it was before COVID-19. Pressure on grain prices. There may be some exceptions where you see like grain sorghum, the Chinese starting to buy some, soybeans, but bottom line is we're kind of holding it together. We're cautious in my district, and as always, we're waiting for the next rain.
Well, and maybe one way to get rain is to find a little bit of relief, and some producers found that with the CFAP program that was initiated in part by Congress, but the administration, and now CFAP 2. But I've noticed there is one big difference between the two, and as I talk around the wheat circles, your name comes up as helping them out.
Part of the challenge of CFAP was, how do you respond as quick as you possibly can to address the impact of COVID-19 on the food chain, both consumers, processors, transportation, but also producers? The program was put together in a hurry, gave the Secretary of Ag maximum flexibility. A matter of fact, when Secretary Perdue and I had a discussion early on in the process, he said, "Congressman, we think we need $50 billion. Well, $50 billion was not available. And the initial money that he got started the process with promise of more money, and now we need to plus out by addressing the $30 billion that needs to be put back in the Commodity Credit Corporation. But the bottom line was, when you do things in a hurry, sometimes you have problems, and we were trying to address all commodity groups that were impacted by COVID-19, and basically my fellow wheat farmers got left out. I and a number of my colleagues up and down the plains and across the country began to work with our wheat growers to pull together the research, the documentation, the justification, however you want to describe it, that wheat should have been included. And now in this most recent announcement, just a few days ago, the Secretary basically says that all classes of wheat are to be included. Now, again, Linda Lucas and I are beef cattle and wheat, so it is close and near and dear to my own heart that we address that, but it just wasn't fair to wheat farmers out there, because when world demand and domestic demand collapsed, they got burned just like everybody else. Because remember, COVID-19 was not our fault. This is something that came across from the rest of the world and hammered us.
You talk about being hammered, and we see this really in rural areas, though pretty much the entire U.S. experienced the stay-at-home orders, if you will, and children who weren't able to go to school. And so suddenly you have some light shining on some new issues, and one you probably knew was there a long time ago: rural broadband. What's happening on that front?
Absolutely. First, let me acknowledge to my constituents, I live in a little efficiency when we're in session up here in DC. Think about the speed of the broadband I have at that little apartment. Then compare it to the speed of broadband in my district office. My district office speed is about half of what it is here in DC. Then compare it to the broadband that we have, Linda and I have on the farm. It's one half of what we have in the district office, which is one half of what's available in Washington, DC. So 1/4. And we're lucky, because not everybody has the basic fiber, the basic lines laid to even have access to that. So when COVID-19 broke loose, it became obvious that not only was it impacting producers' ability to make market decisions, because you need that information, you need to be able to contract, you need to have access to what's going on immediately. But when the school systems came to the conclusion, oh my goodness, we've got to educate kids, but they can't, at least for the time being, be in the building with each other or with their instructors, their professors, how do we respond? There's a huge amount of area, Tony, in this country where even basic broadband doesn't exist, where you have almost primitive broadband, but not enough to really make the internet work correctly. So, not only in the last two farm bills, but in the CARES package, and now trying in the second one, CFAP, trying to put more money into this, it's going to be hugely expensive to build up. But if we're going to have, if rural America is going to be on the same business and living and educational footing as the rest of the country, we're going to have to do it. I just remind people when they say in the urban or suburban areas, why does this matter? I say quite simply, everybody under 40, maybe everybody under 50, is not going to live in an area where they can't, through the internet, through the use of broadband, access the entire world for their business, for their pleasure, for their education. You don't want, no one wants that kind of a brain drain, a human resource drain in rural America, because we still have to raise the food, the fiber, we still have to take care of the water, the air, the soil. It's still important. So that's what we're trying to do. Expensive, but we're trying.
So let's tie this into one other thing that you've been championing as well, and this goes to education and to the acronym STEM. Tell us more about that.
STEM is the concept about science, engineering, mathematics, computer programming, the technology fields. It's estimated that over the next 10 years there will be 1 million open STEM jobs, and of the best paying jobs, 3/4, maybe 90% of them will be STEM related. If we don't enable young people in rural America to have the same opportunities to STEM education as you would have in the suburbs or in the inner city areas, one, we're denying some of our fellow citizens, our children, our grandchildren, a chance to live up to their potential. And number two, we're denying the economy, because we've got to have these people if we're going to move forward. The Chinese, the Europeans, a variety of other countries and regions are applying massive amounts of money to these education programs because they know that's how to not only get ahead, but stay ahead, not just for the next few years, but for the coming century or longer. So the effort that I'm a part of is to make sure that resources are there. And some will say, well, it's easy, right? You just give them more money. No, it's kind of complicated because in the urban, suburban areas, for instance, you can have universities, you can have corporate America, big businesses that use this technology, partner with the schools, whether it's elementary or high school, community colleges, partner with them so that students see what the real potential is, opportunity-wise, and that includes economically. But in the rural areas, there's not those obvious things. That's why we try and drive the opportunities we have. Anybody that's been on a modern tractor, and it doesn't matter what color paint it has, between the GPS technology, the precision agriculture and putting down the fertilizer, the chemicals, the seed, the way we assess as we harvest, it is classic STEM related stuff, but we've got to make sure the folks back home, the kids back home, understand that's a part of this equation too. So my goal is to make sure that the economy has the people it needs to grow in the industries, the skill sets that are necessary, STEM being a huge part of that. But it's also to make sure whether you live in Radin, Oklahoma, or Boise City, or Hollis, or Scheidler, Oklahoma, that if you want to be in this and you're a young person, you have the opportunity. Because I want you to live up to your potential. We'll all be better off. But that means persuading my friends that we have to work a little harder to make this happen.
Final one for you. It's the opportunity because as a farmer, you are already optimistic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when you look down the road, what are you most optimistic about right now?
I think that the world population is probably going to slow some, but we'll still add some more billions of people over the course of the next century. I think agricultural technology. We've been some of the most amazing adopters of everything new and worthwhile and innovative and creative and more effective. I think that will continue. I believe that if we will, on the federal government, working with state government and local government, if we will help our citizens understand the opportunities that lie in front of them and give them a path to get there to achieve those potential opportunities, the potential is unlimited. But we've got to think outside of the box. We've got to be open-minded, and we've got to understand that our children or grandchildren may not do things exactly the way we did. But that's okay. I've never plowed behind a horse like my grandfathers. I never had to figure out how to change the spark plugs on a Fordson tractor. That's okay. I look to the sky now for all kinds of information. There's great potential out there if we'll just work hard enough.
Great to see you. Thanks for the work you do. We wish you the best.
Pleasure as always.
Again, it's the Honorable Frank Lucas, representing the 3rd Congressional District of Oklahoma, member of the Financial Services, as well as the Science, Space, and Technology Committees, on today's Agribusiness Report.